Welcome to Elevate, the podcast where we dissect exceptional achievers who are consistently raising the bar personally and professionally to produce extraordinary results in investment real estate and ultimately in their lives. Now here's your host, Tyler Chesser.
Elevate Nation, welcome back. This is Tyler Chesser. I'm so thankful to have you here. And I'm so thankful to be joined by Andrew Campbell. Andrew, how are you, sir?
I'm doing awesome. Friday afternoon, everything's good. How are you?
I know. I'm doing great, man. We were talking about it's Vest Friday. We did not plan this, I promise. But if you're watching on YouTube, we definitely got the power vests out today. So looking forward to diving in. But I want to welcome Elevate Nation back to the show because it's our mission to identify and apply how the best of the best raise the bar personally and professionally to achieve greatness in real estate and beyond. And this is a masterclass. You know, we certainly have a master here, somebody who I really admire, somebody who's a lot of fun. And, you know, this show is really for leaders and those who are looking to achieve uncommon results and purposeful outcomes through real estate investing and ultimately in their lives. And if you appreciate what we've been doing on Elevate Podcast, we would certainly appreciate if you subscribe to the show. If you gave us a rating, a review, we certainly would appreciate that. It helps us reach the message to more people. And ultimately our goal is to reach the message to millions and millions of people because you know what? Most people are just tolerating their lives. Most people are plugging it in and, you know, they're doing what it takes to live that kind of average life, but we're trying to go beyond that. We want to expand beyond our limits. And so with that said, I want to go ahead and dive in and introduce you to Andrew Campbell. Andrew is a native Austinite. Let me just say, I went to Austin earlier this year. Great city, a lot of fun. So he's going to have to, host me here soon, I'm thinking. But he's also a real estate entrepreneur who broke into real estate investing first as a passive investor in 2009. In 2012, he transitioned into active investing and management of a personal portfolio that grew to 76 units across Austin and San Antonio. He earned his stripes building and managing his personal portfolio before moving into larger multifamily buildings. At Wildhorn Capital, he is focused on acquisitions and maintaining investor relations, leveraging his marketing background to build long-term relationships. Today, Wildhorn Capital controls $175 million portfolio of over 1,700 units in Texas. Andrew's background is in market research and brand strategy, spending time with both advertising agencies and emerging technology consultancies, where he was most recently a partner and an award-winning app developer. He received a BS in advertising from the University of Texas at Austin, and an MBA from Baylor University. So, Andrew, we like I always say, man, we love our bios, especially in real estate. And but I'm curious to know a little bit more about you behind the bio. Maybe you can sort of give us a look into who is Andrew Campbell, the man.
Hearing that, I got to get that bio cut down. That was a mouthful. But no, I'm just a guy, grew up in Austin, happy to live here, getting ready to have our fourth kid probably in the next month. And, been at real estate, kind of fell into it about 10 years ago and been, having a ton of fun, building relationships, meeting with investors and managing the property that we have and really kind of trying to live a life by design. It's kind of what we do. So I love working for myself and just kind of crafting our life and business to accomplish the goals that we set out to do as a family.
I love that. I love the concept of life by design. So tell me a little bit more about that. I mean, have you set that vision out and you say, all right, now let's build the systems, build the business to support that, or how has that worked for you?
I think it's a work in progress for sure. And it's an ideal that, we strive towards and have some systems in place to help us achieve that. But I think it really kind of goes back to how we got into real estate. And in 2007, I was living out of state. I worked for an ad agency and my dad had a stroke. I got a phone call and said, hey, you need to fly home. And so I flew home and basically never left. And, he was in pretty rough shape. It ended up being, like a 6-month stay at the hospital, the rehab hospital. And during that time, for me, it was kind of seminal. I was like 27 years old and had quit my job and sold my house and was like, all right, I'm now living with my mom. I've got no income. I'm 27 years old. I thought I was on this corporate track to be, VP, whatever. That's all bullshit. And I want to figure out the way to get some more time, get some passive income. Knew I was gonna have to help take care of my dad some. I just wanted something different. So that kind of opened up my eyes, and that's really what got me into real estate. It's also kind of what got me into the mindset of, how do I create a life by design where, I control my time and have flexibility.
So the event of your dad having a stroke was really, would you say that was also the moment where you were like, you know what, not only I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it to the highest level and, not accept mediocrity? Or was there something else that happened?
No, I think that was definitely a part of it. I mean, growing up, I was always like my mom would always say, "Hey, I'm the driven kid," and I was always super ambitious and motivated, to make a lot of money and be successful. I think when my dad got sick, it sort of changed the direction and the path I thought I was on, into, hey, I need to go create passive income kind of started reading about rental property. And once I committed to that path, I was committed. But it was definitely like that put me on that path, and I knew, okay, I need to go. I really need to make this thing work.
Are you someone who is looking to seriously elevate your life this year? I mean, now, this year, 2020, because I want to let you know that I am currently opening up a few coaching spots for people like you who want to close the gap from where you are to where you want to be. And I want to invite you to visit coachwithtyler.com. Again, that's coachwithtyler.com. I have to tell you, this is not for everyone. This is only for those who are defiantly committed, those who are decisive, those who are coachable, those who are resourceful. They're willing to do whatever it takes. They're willing to sacrifice time, energy, and invest resources into themselves to get to where they want to be, to live life at the highest level, and to elevate to a life without limits, exactly what we talk about on this show. If that is you, I invite you to visit coachwithtyler.com. Again, that's coachwithtyler.com. Yeah, so obviously you never want to have anything like that happen to especially any of your parents or anybody that's close to you. But it seems like maybe it was a moment where you were able to kind of have something in your life that happened perhaps for you in some ways that kind of supported you and put you on a path that was going to kind of, support a greater future and even a life by design. Because I know you and I even talked about this at, a conference we both attended recently. It's like, you can't really build that life by design if you're kind of sitting in that corporate suite or whatever it may be. I'm not saying you can't create a great life in that way, but it's just a different mentality. It's a different outlook, and it's a different set of systems that's going to allow you to do that. So I think it's really interesting, how you kind of took that path. And so tell me, obviously you built a portfolio of, 76 units throughout that time. Did you get to a point where it was just like, you know what, I can't just keep spinning my wheels on these smaller properties, and now it's time to just start bringing other investors in, and you had sort of the experience of successfully operating that kind of portfolio, or how did that happen?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, eventually I did get another job back here in Austin. And so I was managing the rental property while I was working. It was really my wife that was sort of pushing me to say, hey, this is the real estate thing's what you really care about. You basically had two full-time jobs, trying to manage the rental properties, grow that portfolio while we were, working. And so this is what you love. This is what you want to go do, go commit to it. And let's figure, how do you go do that? Because you're really kind of, you don't have any free time and you're sort of miserable in your day job. And I think everything you just spoke to it. It wasn't my time. It wasn't my job. As I was highly paid. I was a partner in this company, but I just wasn't into it. So it was really her pushing me to finally, take the leap and, walk away from the salary and the benefits and everything else as kind of the breadwinner for the family. That I did say, okay, it does make more sense now to look at the bigger properties. You see the economies of scale, the efficiencies, they operate better. And I think the other piece is we just kind of had run out of our own. We built all that 76 units with our own capital and doing refis and just being thrifty, saving money. So figuring out what did that look like, and really just understanding it was even possible. I think as a sort of layman, or you have a few rental properties, you're like, God, who the hell are these rich people that buy these 250 apartment buildings? Figuring out that was possible. Really, kind of light bulb went off, like, oh, that makes a ton of sense. And yeah, I don't want to have to manage them. And you can have a team of 4 or 5 people on site. That's their full-time job to make this thing go. And that's kind of what got us into it.
I think it's so interesting that the first step of there was just realizing that it was possible. It's like
Yeah.
that is the first thing that I see most people, the thought process on a large, whether it's commercial real estate asset in any asset class or a large apartment complex or industrial or whatever it may be. It's like, man, who are these billionaires that own these things, and really like kind of taking the lid off of the possibilities. It's like, oh, wow, now that it's possible. So now anything is possible. So I
Yeah.
think it's really, really interesting that it kind of started there, but it also took your wife to kind of get you to a position where it's like, hey, you know what, you love this. I can see this. You don't see it yourself, but you see yourself as, the breadwinner and responsible and those kind of things. But, taking a courageous leap is also key. It's also something that I've had to do. And I see most people in this space. It's like, you know what, there's going to be uncertainty, but you have to just go ahead and take that leap. So tell me, if we were to fast forward, let's fast forward to today. Obviously you guys have been taking down large assets. I know you just closed on how many units in Austin there?
It was 350.
350 units there, Class A deal, beautiful deal in Austin. And I know you're doing great things beyond that. And I know you're still beating the streets for more opportunities. So I'd be curious to know, what's an example of something you guys have done recently to raise the bar in your business to elevate your own results?
We have regular meetings, my business partner and I, just kind of sitting down and talking about, hey, what are the things? We actually did an exercise, he was in town maybe 4 weeks ago, kind of sat down at the whiteboard and said matrix of what are the things that you like to do? What are things that move the needle for the business? What are the things that you don't like to do, but move the needle for the business? And what are the things you don't like to do? And so kind of evaluating for both of us, what are tasks that we need to go offload and hire people for? What are things that we realize we need to continue to do, even if it's not our favorite thing? And then, how do we spend more time doing the things that we love to do and move the needle for the business? So that's, a pretty recent example of something really kind of sitting down to evaluate how do we continue to surround I build the infrastructure to do what we want to do. I mean, we share a goal of wanting to be able to do 3 to 4, big deals a year. I think for us, it's a good pace that allows us to live the life by design. Doesn't have to have us build out an office building with 50 employees. But we know you got to have some infrastructure to support that. So making sure we have that in place. We've got an assistant that helps us do stuff. We've got analysts. I mean, we've been over the last 3 years adding piece by piece, whether it's a person or some technology or whatever the infrastructure we might need to do. And I think it's just continually evaluating what's the stuff we really like to do that moves the needle, and how do we get rid of all the other stuff?
So tell me about what's one thing that you liked to do that you found through this process, and one thing that you found that you did not like to do, and maybe what the items, maybe a few of the items that you said you didn't like to do. What sort of technology or personnel do you think would solve that issue?
Yeah, like, a couple examples. Like, I am not a details person. And I think one of the things that makes our partnership really good is he's an engineer by trade, and just, an engineer, he thinks in details.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, anything that's due to details, follow up, sort of, that's not a strength of mine. I'd prefer not to have to mess with it. So typically he handles more of that. And we're looking at, well, which of those details actually move the business forward, and which of those could we, have our assistant handler? Do we need to go get, a junior level asset manager that kind of come in and take care of some of the, bank draws, for an example? We could get our CapEx done, and, it's just a bunch of documentation. It takes time. It's super important. You got to do it. Moves the business forward, but it's not something that he necessarily enjoys. So we started talking about what does that role look like? Who's the right person for that? Is that somebody we want to go get a 24-year-old person that we're going to help train up and give them the opportunity to grow with us, or do we want to go get a more seasoned person? So just kind of having those conversations and evaluating the things that you don't like to do. On the flip side, the things that I like to do that I think move the needle for the business, meeting guys like you, having conversations like this, really focusing and being intentional with the relationships we have with our investors, with the brokers that we get our deals from. I love that stuff. I love talking to people. I love going golfing and, just sort of networking, and that's kind of how deals get done. And so I want to continue to do that because I like it, and I know that that's how we, win deals and get intel about competitive deals and just all of that stuff that moves the needle forward. So how can I get rid of some of the other stuff that is not as important, so I can carve off half a day every week to go play golf, because I know that moves the needle for our business, as self-serving as that may sound, because I love
Right.
golf.
Well, it's a relationship business, and you're certainly great at building those relationships. I mean, you and I met, and we kind of hit it off immediately because we've talked probably little about business, but mostly it's about, hey, you're somebody that I can trust, and I think that you do a great job of that. But I think beyond that, it is about talking about, all right, well, who are my potential partner opportunities, or what does my partner, have a strength in that I don't have a strength in, and sort of identifying those things and saying, all right, maybe we're both weak in this one area, so we've got to be able to, kind of build that out externally, whether it's, through personnel or other resources. So I think it's a great exercise, a great reminder. I'm taking notes here too. It's like, I need to get to work on some of these things as well. But what we're talking about is building the infrastructure to have a life by design. And that's what, real estate syndication is. That's what real estate investing is. But beyond just the asset, it's about, how do you operate? How are you continuing to grow that? What are your goals? And 3 to 4 big deals a year sort of, works for you guys in terms of what you're looking to accomplish. So I think it's just something that Elevate Nation has got to challenge themselves on, is like, all right, well, what type of infrastructure do we need, and what's the true outcome? If you've got the vision of what you want your life by design to be, what is it going to take to get there? And so these are all really actionable steps. So I appreciate you sharing that. Tell me.
Yeah, and I think one, just to add to that, being very clear about what your goals are and not getting overly ambitious or letting your ego get in the way to define, like, what do you want? And I think for us, we've said, hey, we want a portfolio of like 3,500 units, 5,000 units. And if you do the math on, if we do 4 deals a year, we hold them for 5 years, you start buying, selling 3-4 deals every year, we're never going to get bigger than that. And that is intentional. We don't want, I've joked and said, look, if we have to go hire an HR person, we're done growing. I've ejected from the corporate structure. I don't want to go recreate that.
Yeah.
We had a meeting with an equity group not too long ago, and they said, you guys want us to take you to 20,000 units. We could give you the money and you can go build up a big deal, and whatever, sell it to a REIT or sell it to Blackstone or something. And took us about 2 seconds to look at each other and said, no, we don't. We don't want to get 20,000 units, because that means we have the office building and we've got 50 people that work for us, and we don't have any flex, because now we're working for these guys, not really ourselves. And so I think being really clear on what it is you truly do want. And, it's okay to not say, I don't want, 20,000 units. No, I want 5, because I'm going to be super happy and also maintain, the majority of my flexibility if I build my business to do that.
That is a phenomenal point, because it's such a good reminder. When we get into real estate business, you build up your portfolio and you say, man, I want to have, whatever, however many units or however many, dollars asset under management. And I think you do kind of, a lot of it, I see this a lot where people get lost in, those big goals and those big dreams, because, they see the dollar signs and they see those type of opportunities, but they also don't realize that, hey, look, if that happens, of course, there's going to be trade-offs, in terms of your own infrastructure, in terms of your own, management or whatever it may be. So that's a great reminder as well. I appreciate you adding that color. What are you, speaking of that, I mean, you said no to an opportunity that, obviously, many people would be highly intrigued about, and it makes a lot of sense as to why you would. But what else? I mean, what other things have you had to say no to recently, and how does that decision making, process go through your mind?
I was thinking about this one a little bit. The biggest thing I try to say no to is just sort of the unplanned meetings. Again, kind of going back to sort of my process and life by design. On Sunday, every Sunday, I'm going to spend half an hour kind of crafting my week. And so I'm looking at, talking to my wife, what do the kids got going on? When do I want to get to the gym? Like, is there an afternoon where I can go play golf? And who do I want to, coordinate to make that a business function? And as I do that, I'm like, as you get into Tuesday and somebody said, hey, can we grab lunch tomorrow? No, we can't. I'm into next week. Yeah. So what do you got going next week? Happy to schedule something. But once I kind of set that schedule for the week and I have my priorities, really trying to say no to sort of the unscheduled. Obviously stuff comes up. But if it's just, hey, can we get together? I'd love to grab coffee on Friday. Well, let's talk about next Friday. Cause even though it's only Monday, I've kind of got my game plan for the week.
Yeah. And I kind of like, and I haven't been doing this lately. My schedule's been so packed, but I like having some margin built in the schedule, because there's some things that you just don't know that are going to come up. You still have to take care of, and it's for your own sanity. Sometimes it's like, instead of running from meeting to meeting to meeting, that's a really good one though. It's a good principle to have. It's like, all right, we plan the week out. We're not doing last minute things. I like that. That's good. Tell me
Well,
about.
I think I'm trying to operate similar to you with that margin, so I don't have my
Yeah.
Friday like down to the 15 minutes,
Right.
planned, but I know like each day, what are my priorities that I need to get done that day? And I may
Yeah.
have, time blocked on my calendar, or I may not, but it's just like, I know these are the three things I got to get done today. And sometimes on Friday, it's like handling everything that didn't get done, the overhang from Wednesday that got pushed to Thursday. And so
Right.
it's, look, by the end of the week, all this stuff need to get done. So I don't want to have it all super scheduled. And if I get it all done, and I can, hang out with the kids a little bit early on Friday or whatever, like that's a win. So it's not about being super, super packed. I think your point about having a little bit of breathing time is super important.
Yeah, because I mean, sometimes you just get overscheduled and you don't actually accomplish anything. If you look
Yeah.
up and it's like, wow, yeah, I had all these meetings, but like, did I accomplish my intentions for the week, or did I even set intentions for the week? It's like, that's a really good kind of course correction that I think is going to be a challenger for most of the people listening to this, because we all get into that. I think it's a good reminder. Talk
I
to
had
me
a
about.
conversation at lunch. I'd be curious to ask you a question here, if I
Perfect.
may, on your show.
Bring it.
We're talking about, hey, I one thing I try to do is schedule days where like I'm not leaving the office. In my case, I've got a studio office in my backyard. It's great. It's life by design. But hey, today I know I'm not meeting with anybody. I don't have a podcast or whatever. Like I'm wearing a hat, shorts, and flip flops. I'm not leaving the office, and so some of that's intentional. Like if I got a hat and flip flops on, it'd be kind of tough for me to run to go really quickly meet with somebody. It's like, no, today's my day where I'm in the office getting stuff done. I've set up meetings and face-to-face, coffees and lunches and stuff for Tuesday, but Monday is like, this week I'm just hammering down and cranking work out. Do you do, as a broker, you gotta be out talking to people, meeting people. Do you do something similar where you try to protect certain days or times where it's like, this is meeting time? Cause I find to be really disruptive they're super valuable, but it's, if you got a coffee at 10, kind of like your morning for the whole morning is sort of
For
shot,
sure.
right?
One of my favorite things that I have in my life is the do not disturb thing on my phone. You swipe it down and you hit the little moon thing. If
Yeah.
I hit that thing and I put it on my computer as well, and I close out email, that's the most productive time I'll ever have. And because my phone rings off the hook, and it's not because I'm popular or awesome, it's because people are looking for opportunities, or they've got something they want to discuss, or there's a deal we're working on. So I have to block out, a certain amount of time, whether it's a specific afternoon. It's fairly rare these days where I have an entire day like that. But if I can map out like a morning or an afternoon where it's just like, hey, total focus, because, those distractions, man, it takes you time to get refocused. So I think it's a great question. I love becoming the guest on my own show. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's a good tip. I don't use the do not disturb enough.
Yeah.
I
Because
find
I mean,
my most productive is on an airplane usually. And it's like,
yes.
oh, well, how come? Well, duh, because you're just sitting there with a computer and you can just write and think.
Exactly. Yeah, because the emails, if you're just constantly on email, I turned off the notifications on email. I turned off, notifications on social media. So when I check them, it's because I decided to check them. It's not because I'm like running around chasing squirrels all the time. But I do like the thought of, hey, let's do, an entire day like this, because that's you gotta sit down and do the work. I mean, you can go
Yeah.
out and build the relationships as much as possible, which is key. It's absolutely critical. But if you can't deliver, upon what you're really building those relationships for, then what's it all for? So, and it also kind of gives you some sanity. So I
Yeah.
love it. It's a good thought, and something that is not talked about enough, because we're always going. So talk to me about habits, man. What's the most important habit that sets you up for success?
We talked about kind of the weekly planning, and I really think that's a key part of me, sort of my sanity and the structure for the week, and trying to live that aspirational life by design. Because that is not just a work thing. I mean, I'll integrate my, when I'm going to go to the gym, or what I've got, like this week, Wednesday, I'm looking at my weekly deal here. I had pumpkin carving at school for the kindergarten. It's like, that's on my list. That was one of my priorities for Wednesday. So
That's awesome.
I think that weekly planning is a habit that, I've gotten to be like, if I don't do that, like I'm sort of stressed out, and like get up extra early on Monday to knock it out. Cause I'm sort of like a ship without a captain. I'm just sort of, I don't know what I'm doing.
Same here. I do what's called a weekly impact list. And essentially what it is, it's like all the different areas in my life that I'm responsible for, or I want to kind of push forward, whether it's, just as a friend, within my primary relationship, or, with my health, or with my business, or with my investments. It's like all these different categories. It's like, all right, what do we need to do to push these things forward? And what's the main priorities this week? And, what's the overarching top 3 things to accomplish this week? So I do think it is something, if you can continue to have things in front of you to remind you of like, hey, here's what I'm really looking to design my life as, and you continue to push that on a weekly and daily basis. That's how you get there. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really like the priority of the pumpkin carving too. I mean, because those things are important, man. If you just crank out the business 24/7, then you're going to miss those sort of opportunities. So it's a great reminder. What's the most worthwhile investment you've made in yourself in the past year?
Oh, the past year.
Putting you on the spot on this one.
Yeah, you are. I mean, you and I kind of connected because we both have a business life coach. It's not a small investment, but I think that's a continuous investment I make that I think gives me accountability, gives me sort of sanity check, somebody to bounce ideas off of, and to hold my feet to the fire. So I think that's an important one that I, will continue to do. But I'd probably say in the last year, it's continued support kind of with life coach.
Yeah, I love it. I couldn't agree more. It's certainly a game changer. So I just recommend everybody that at least, find somebody to hold you accountable. If anything, just start there, get somebody, tell them about your goals. What are your intentions? And, get with them on a kind of, weekly or biweekly basis. I mean, it will make a big difference, but beyond that, if you can have somebody who can help you strategize and implement some systems, and obviously elevate your own mindset and psychology, I mean, that's when you really start to up level tremendously. So I totally agree. Tell me about a failure that you've experienced that has been maybe feeling, somewhat devastated at the time, that's really turned out to be something that's come full circle and set you up for success.
I think in the context of what we're doing with buying, multifamily deals, but really regardless of that it's a multifamily deal, we are, raising money from investors. Having personally had some investments in the past that, were terrible investments, you lost everything, and knowing how terrible that feels. I think that has really driven it's driven our strategy a little bit, in the fact that we're looking for kind of B class and better deals. I'm not willing to risk. I don't want a C class deal that, I'm hoping the market's going to turn left and this will be in the path of progress. And like, look, we're taking other people's investment. I want preservation of capital, and I want to be able to look people, in the eye when I'm meeting with them and say, look, this is, you're not going to lose money on this deal. I think you're going to make this much, but in my sort of wildest worst case scenarios, you're getting your money back. I think having gone through that and not gotten my money back on multiple occasions with kind of 6-figure type investments, so I'm like, all right, that sucked. Sit down and tell my wife that has happened. That's really, I think, driven us in the kind of the private equity space that we're operating in.
Were those on active deals that just went south, or was that other passive deals?
They weren't even, they were passive. They weren't even real estate. But I just think that, that gut punch of, hey, this deal it's going down, and there's you're not getting your money back. And, I think helped me evaluate what the term risk is, and probably led me down, hey, the real estate, like you're buying something that exists today. It's got cash flow. You can see how it operates.
Mm-hmm.
You got to plan to make it a little bit better. That's a pretty simple path versus,
Right.
some of this more, here's a startup, here's a, a new concept, a new business that, not really proven. I think that's something that drove me into the multifamily space, but it's definitely something I keep with me as we're, raising, a lot of money from a lot of people, that,
Yeah.
hey, this is who we're accountable to, and I'm not going to make those type of phone calls. So let's make sure we're responsible and doing everything we can to deliver.
I think it's so important as a syndicator to have that experience as an investor, not necessarily as a, you lost your money in another deal, but just to have the perspective and the full perspective of how important it is to be handling someone else's capital and, directing it and managing it in those ways, because, sometimes you get removed from the importance, and these people, they worked hard for their money and they've sacrificed and done these things. So I think it's a great reminder. You want to be investing with people like that. It's like, you know what, not necessarily someone who's lost again, but someone who really fully appreciates the importance of the situation. And I love that. So, beyond that, I think you and I would both agree that success leaves clues. And I'd be curious to know, whether it's in business or in life, do you have any role models, and who might that be?
I definitely agreed. I think success leave clues. And as I've been, left the corporate world, been sort of on the entrepreneurial path, kind of searching for who are the people that you want to follow or kind of get inspiration from. It's tough for me to kind of name a specific person, but I like some of the, listen to kind of some of the Tony Robbins stuff. Somebody that I follow, and I don't do a ton of social media, Jesse Itzler.
Mhm.
Kind of his just passion and sort of go get him attitude. I think I find sort of inspiration in a lot of his stuff.
Yeah.
Just because I think he's, proven it several times over, like, hey, it's grit, hustle, hard work. And those are kind of things that pillars we want to work towards.
Yeah, and I don't know a lot about him, but I think I know a little bit. And from what I understand, he's the type of guy who's, not only grit, hustle, hard work, but he's the type of guy who's like, you know what, you need to go and live your life and experience things and go, you know, hike down this mountain or up this mountain or whatever it may be, and just like do
Yeah.
crazy stuff. So it's a
Yeah.
great
And
reminder.
push
It's not all
yourself.
about work, right? Yeah, push
Yeah.
yourself beyond your limits too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I love it, man. What's the overall driving force behind what you do?
I think having that flexibility, in my life. I mean, I mentioned we're about to have our fourth kid. So being around, having them know who I am. I mean, it's amazing to me. So our oldest daughter, well, is almost 9. When we had her, I was getting my MBA and working full-time job. And I mean, I'd see her like once a week, like when she was a baby, she slept a bunch. And I remember coming home and, I'd walk to the door and she's like, no, like she didn't want me because she knew she wanted to play with mom because she hardly knew me. And compare that now if we've got a, 16-month-old and I see him, 3, 4, 5 times a day, hang out with him, just go inside. And that's what drives me, like making sure that I'm doing all this stuff so I can be around and go carve pumpkins and, do just kind of be around.
If there's anything that's more of a driving force behind, doing what it takes to live a life by design, it's when your child says no, they don't want you in the room. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
That
And you realize you're paying it forward and look, I'm
Yeah,
getting this NBA and I think it's going to pay off and
right.
it's worth it. And it has been worth it. But the difference between those two, that are like 7 years apart in age is pretty dramatic, and kind of just how they respond to me as a 1-year-old.
Right, right. That's awesome, man. So I want to transition now into our rapid fire section. We call it the
Yeah.
rare air questionnaire. The reason why we call it that is because we're scaling the mountaintop right now. Most people gave up way before it really got hard, but we're pushing our limits. And not only are we going to climb this mountain, but we're climbing the next, and we're setting our next intention to climb the next mountain. So I'd love to know what's the most impactful book that you've ever read and why.
Well, I think it's because it was probably the first real estate investing book that I was given. But when I moved back to Austin and I was, spending much time in the hospital, one of my mentors kind of pushed me into the space, gave me Gary Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Investor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, between that book and my buddy kind of pushing me to say, hey, you really look at these duplexes. I think that's probably just from a pure impact on my life. The first one that kind of got me going down this path.
That's awesome. I'll have to, we'll put that in the show notes. I actually own that book and I haven't read it yet. So I'm admitting that to Elevate Nation right now, but, actually Gary Keller, man, he's an awesome guy. He wrote another book called The One Thing. I don't know if you've read that one, but it's super good. And, it's a great read. So I highly recommend that. But, tell me about, what's the biggest way that you elevate your life on a daily basis?
Morning routine, and I'm, first one to admit I'm a little spotty and always, jumping out of bed at 5 a.m. to kind of do that. But I know the days that I get up and, go back, look at my weekly plan, kind of get some of my own personal stuff done before the hustle starts of getting kids out the door. Some days that means I go to the gym at 6. Some days that's me just, cranking out some emails. So I feel like I got, some of that off my plate. But getting that productive time, before the sun comes up, whatever it is that day, is really important. And it's frankly something I need to do better at. I'm probably, 4 days a week, and I want to get that 5th day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's also really, I think, great that you admit that it's not perfect. Like a lot of times people talk on a podcast or wherever, and they're like, I'm always up at 4:45 a.m. and, no matter what, and I meditate for an hour, and then I do this, and this, and I think it's really good to just, you gotta, like, yes, we want to continue to raise our bar, but you can't, people who think, man, that life is just totally unattainable. I think there's a little bit of, a challenge in that. So I really appreciate you sharing that. But also, I'm with you, man. The morning before things get crazy, I mean, it's total game changer. And, I'm with you on that. But I kind of like mornings, man. I drink some coffee and, get some things done and,
Yeah.
get ahead of the
I just feel better.
competition.
I'm in a better mood, like when
Same.
the kids come downstairs and we're getting ready for breakfast, and I've already gotten whatever it is. I've been to the gym, or I've gotten an hour of emails, or I've done, writing, whatever it is. It's like, it's a better day when that happens.
Absolutely. Because then you're not catching up either.
Yeah.
Or you're not doing the things that are most important. Like you're not planning and setting your intentions and going after what's really important. You're chasing your tail otherwise. So
Yep.
I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
How do you elevate others around you?
I think take this a couple of different directions, but I think, number one, from sort of a philanthropy kind of giving back standpoint, my wife and I are involved in the children's hospital, here in Austin. And there's a group, when our son was little, he spent about 4 weeks at 6 weeks old, about 4 weeks in the ICU. And so that's got a kind of special place for us. But, kind of stay active in that, and give back and raise money for the children's hospital. But then also trying to, within the multifamily space, trying to just, be a resource for people, help people, that, want to get started, whether they want to be a passive investor or active, sponsor. But, we really just put an article out about the abundance mindset, and really kind of sharing that attitude of, hey man, I want to help people be successful, whether that really benefits me or not. I think there's enough, success in the world. There's enough money in the world that, how can I help you achieve your goals? And that's going to be reciprocal, and it's going to come back to me, but I don't do it necessarily for that reason. And really try to live and embody that abundance mindset.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, one of the biggest reasons why I do this show is like, what, if you share more, it's not only going to help other people, it's the right thing to do, but it also raises your own opportunities. And like when everyone succeeds, you also succeed. And I love the thought too of, being philanthropic, because you know what, it is all about contribution. You can't just take, you've got to give. And it's amazing. It's like Christmas Day. I mean, you almost receive more when you give. And I think it's a great reminder to find your calling, find your cause. Like, what is it that you can contribute to, whether it's time, money, resources, whatever it may be. So really appreciate it. And Andrew, this has been a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. And how can Elevate Nation stay in contact with you and connect with you and your company?
Yeah, well, it's been a ton of fun. Definitely enjoyed it. If they want to reach out to me, our website is just wildhorncap.com. My email is andrew@wildhorncap.com. Um, Happy to connect there. I think we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, for those both Wildhorn and Andrew Campbell. So happy to connect and spread the word.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, highly recommend you do that and take him up on connecting with him. Andrew's a great guy, and I want to remind Elevate Nation. I mean, we have got so much gold nuggets of wisdom in this. You've got to replay the show. You got to take notes. You have to apply it immediately. I mean, the one thing is like knowledge is potential power. Power is taking action on that knowledge, and share it with someone else. I mean, teach someone else what we talked about today. There's so many things I took notes on here. It's like, I need to start applying this, but I also need to share it with someone else because I'm going to understand it better. I'm also going to help them. It's like we talked about here at the end, the abundance mindset. So, take massive action. Until next time, Elevate Nation, thank you so much for tuning in. And Andrew, thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks. Enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to Elevate. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to elevate your results by taking immediate action on what you learned. For more, visit tylerchesser.com.